All right, welcome to this week's edition of TBD with Coach Kraushaar, where our topic is always to be determined. We talk a lot about sports, a lot about high school and scholastic activities, but we also talk about grilling with our sponsors, Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning, where you can get your Green Mountain pellet grill, your Big Green Egg, your Weber smoke fire grill, any sort of outdoor living from Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning here in Muscatine, Iowa. We're in the middle still of, we're coming out of quarantine, so we're still doing these shows, via Zoom and in our basements and apartments and houses. And our guest today, we're going to deviate a little bit of sports. We always want to try to talk to people who are tied into our community in some way, shape, or form. Our guest today is actually Nate Fratzke, who is a Wilton, Iowa native. And I met Nate for the first time when he was a high school junior, and I was the new special teams coordinator for the Wilton Beavers football program. And Nate was one of the players that had the opportunity to coach. And now he's moved on into the world of professional music, as well as finishing his upper-level graduate degree, his doctorate at the University of Southern California. And so Nate Fratzke, all the way from Los Angeles, you're getting the award for the furthest guest for our show so far tonight.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to be here. I'm excited for our chat.
Yeah, so we obviously go back about, probably 10 years already, maybe even
Yeah,
longer.
man. I think it's been longer than that, probably 2000, 2008, 2007, 2008, something like that.
Yeah, gosh, it doesn't seem like it could be that long ago, but it is. I think I've had 3 children since since I was coaching.
Things have
And
happened.
yeah, and you, I mean, it's weird because you guys, were 16, 17-year-olds when I met you for the first time, and now you're all successful adults, and it's interesting to encounter you guys now in a different season of life. And now I finally know what all of my coaches felt like, I guess, when I've encountered them now as a grown person as well. So it's always good to follow up with you. And because you and I have a very shared history, many of our guests may not know that I also matriculated as a music major out of high school. You went on to Wartburg College after you graduated from Wilton, and just kind of talk about your journey. When did you decide that, music is maybe the thing that I want to pursue and look at it as a profession after your high school career?
Yeah, music has always been something that I've loved. I think my very first memory of music and being kind of entranced with it, I guess you could say, is I think I was 4 years old, or right around that toddler age. And my mom, she's an amateur musician. I have fond memories of her sitting at our little upright piano at our house on York Street in Wilton, and she would play and sing pop songs. And I just remember like watching her play. And my very first memory that I have is like going up and like just standing and looking at her sitting at the piano playing and singing. I was just kind of fascinated by it. So I eventually worked up the courage to sit down at this monster instrument. I'm this little toddler at the time, and try to plunk my way through it. And the very first song that I learned how to play was the Star Spangled Banner. I plunked that out by ear, and just that was kind of the takeoff of my music interests. I sang in choir in elementary school. Shout out to Bev Ryder. For being such an amazing influence on me and providing me with so many great opportunities. But yeah, I took piano lessons starting at age 5, took them through my junior year of high school. I decided to take my senior year off so that I could focus on sports because I was like you, I was someone who was greatly interested in multiple things, both music and sports. And in high school, I was fortunate to have friends who wanted to be in a band, Ben Ryder and Dylan Neiman. And
I've heard about this band. I've definitely, I remember it was kind of a legendary trio.
It was really cool. Yeah, Dylan, he still to this day, he's still making music. He sings at as a big evangelical church in Missouri. I can't think of the name of it, but he's still singing. He's still making music. He's got an incredible voice. He's always had a great voice. He was our lead singer. And then Ben Ryder, he was our drummer. And then I played keys, guitar periodically, and sang backup vocals. We were fortunate to get some studio time, which was a really, really neat experience. And we got to cut like a little EP, which we called the Cover Project, because it was basically covers of pop songs that we loved. And I do have to make sure that I mention that we were supported financially for that through some fundraising from selling the CDs, but ultimately with the help of our families. So yeah, it was a really great experience. We did a number of performances. We played at some semi-pro baseball games. We played at some small gigs in the Quad City area. It was really fun. And that kind of that interest in music, and specifically in pop music, kind of carried me into wanting to be a music major at Wartburg.
So you head on to Waverly. Now, was Torkelson still there when you were there, or had he just moved on, the legendary choral director there?
Right, yeah, Paul Torkelson. So a little bit of background behind that. For those of you who don't know, college choir directors are kind of like college football coaches.
They're like head football coaches. You're exactly right.
Exactly. They're these icons, you know. So also another amazing opportunity that I had in high school at Wilton through Bev and through the support of my parents. I got to go to Europe for 17 days as part of the Iowa Ambassadors in Music. It's basically like a nominated all-state choir that travels internationally. So I got to do that, and we went to 6 different countries and sang, and that was my first time leaving the country, and it was amazing, culturally and musically. But the director for that all-state choir, the clinician, I guess you would call him, it was Paul Torkelson, who happened to be the director of choral studies at Wartburg College. And I sang for this man, and he was charismatic and motivational, and I just never really made music like that before. And I'm like, I have to keep doing this. So I wanted to sing in college choirs, and I'm like, I want to go to Wartburg because that's where he is. But then I auditioned at Wartburg, and then he left like the year that I was supposed to go.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, there's nothing like that first time, I think, when you sing with a real choir. I don't know that. I mean, high school choirs are amazing, and, you know, the programs around here are very strong. But there's something about, you know, getting into a select group, whether it's the Iowa All-State or, you know, I had the opportunity to sing at a University of Iowa Honor Choir, and you're working with like the best of the best in these direct. Tim Stalter at the University of Iowa. You know, that was the first person I ever encountered who had perfect pitch. There's something about being in the room with people that you know are way better than you, that it's kind of a way effect where you're either going to float away like the liquid in the cheese, or you're going to, you know, curd up and become, you know, become something out of this experience. And it sounds like that experience kind of showed you that you could become something out of this. And so you end up at Wartburg. And what was your actual, were you music education, music performance? What was your bachelor's in?
I suffered from the case of not being able to make up my mind on what I wanted to do. So I had interests in piano, I had interests in music theory, I had interests in composition, Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I had interest in piano, music theory, composition.
So you were the kid I would try to sit next to in class to try and figure out.
Why is that? Try to cheat off the papers or what?
Not cheat. Just collaborate a little bit. Never on a test, but just during the rest of the class to make sure I was heading down the right path.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I guess you could say that. You know, it's interesting because I remember when I first went to Wartburg, for those of you who don't know, most classical music collegiate programs or most music programs in the United States are centered on Western classical music, like the Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, etc. That kind of music. And you know, I always loved pop music, and that I was just talking to one of my professors actually about this today. That when I went to Wartburg, the main reason that I wanted to go and be a music major there, besides singing in the choir, was to try to hone my music chops. try to become a better singer. I was excited to take voice lessons for the first time. I was
Yeah, but you got stuck with Adam Webb as one of your teachers.
I actually didn't. I didn't study with
Oh,
Webb.
okay.
No,
For the
I
listeners,
studied.
that's my best friend from college who ended up as a professor.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
No, I know people who studied with him. They said he was great.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, sorry. I thought you got stuck with him.
no, it's
He was a
cool.
groomsman in my wedding. Like I'm godparent to his children. Like anyway. Well, I digress.
Awesome. But yeah, no, so because pop music wasn't really a center of the educational focus there, I started to learn about classical briefly through my piano lessons, like in high school, and some of the choir repertoire that we sang in high school. But when I got to Wartburg, that was really my first real taste of Western classical music. And I learned about music theory, and I learned about music history, and truly centuries of building blocks that led to the development of music in the United States that we have today. Of course, there are other influences like Jewish music and Black music that can't be denied. But the Western European music definitely had an influence. So I started to learn about this more in the curriculum and become interested in it. I took classical piano lessons, I took classical voice lessons, and then around my junior year, I started to get interested in composing. So I started writing music.
Well, and then that took you on to the University of Missouri for your master's, and then now you're at USC. And are you are you in the PhD program at USC? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I also wanted to let you know, I just got a text from my 7:00 appointment, and they need to reschedule. So
Okay, cool. So you're out. So you don't have as hard of an out as possible. Okay, cool.
We can just chat.
All right.
But yeah, so at USC, I'm currently working on a degree. It's called a DMA, a Doctor of Musical Arts, in choral music, which is essentially choral conducting. But in the collegiate musical world, there's a difference between PhDs and DMAs. Those are the two main doctoral music degrees that are offered. So DMAs, like I mentioned earlier, stands for Doctor of Musical Arts, and those are more performance-based degrees. These are for people like the piano performance majors and the classical violinists and the opera singers and the conductors. So, and then the PhDs focus more on the research sides of things. So like people who study music education, for example, and do case studies and try to work on things to improve the classroom and teaching methods. So my focus is a DMA focused on conducting and choir teaching and choir directing.
Yeah, my mentor, Dr. Michael Krieger, he's at the Denver. He's in Denver now. He conducts a bit large civic chorale now. But I was his voice student when he was finishing his DMA, and he actually might be in the PhD program at Illinois. But he was doing his on. He created a new way of notating French Renaissance music, and he was trying to explain it to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is way over my head. I don't really know what's going on here. And it's just, I enjoy as kind of I like listening to you talk, because I think it energizes you to be with people who are passionate about what they're doing. And and you're talking about choral conducting, which is such a passion of mine. And honestly, it's interesting because with COVID-19 and some of the precautions that we're needing to take globally and in our country, I was just sitting in on a conference call about women's high school football coming back and the high school sports and some of those things. And I realized as I was sitting in that meeting, even if things start to come back in the fall in the academic schedule, there's a real possibility that choral music is not going to be one of those things that come back because of the higher risk of transmission through that activity alone. And so is it stuff that you guys are talking about in your circles, as people who are standing on the podium with 44 people salivating in your direction? I mean, is that stuff that's being discussed on how that's going to happen?
Yeah, man.
Spitting out your consonants is a real thing.
It's very true. Diction, we need diction with our words to identify them. But no, it's a very real sad reality for the choral world right now, because I was actually just reading an article about it today, and it was saying, kind of it going on what you were starting to talk about, was that when you sing, it's different from talking in the way that singing, in order to project the sound further, in order to create higher pitches or to create bigger dynamics, louder volumes of sound, there needs to be more air that's expelled from the body. So kind of just like the core in athletics, like core strength, is so pinnacle to athleticism. Being able to breathe properly and being able to engage the breath when you sing directly affects the outcome, the sound that comes out. And because air and there's more of it that takes place. And when more air is expelled with the COVID situation, there's more danger. So some of the precautions that people have started to try to take are, well, I'll use USC as an example. They're currently restructuring their entire program right now, which is a monstrous feat in itself. At USC, there are 5 choirs that are conducted by faculty members and doctoral students and master's degree students. All in all, there are, within those 5 choirs and within the choral majors, there's probably, I'd say about 150 people in our department in total. But it's so tough because, number one, there's limitations on how many people can be in a room at once, because social distancing is real. And then even if you actually, I will say, when you social distance, think about when you see choirs perform, or you see anyone that sees pictures of choirs, the people are standing close to each other, because it's another important aspect of choral singing as opposed to solo singing, is you have to be able to hear the voices around you, and, for the lack of better words, or I was going to say blend, but I'm going to say meld your sound and create a homogeneous sound of one unified voice. You can't meld your sound if people are so far away on either side that you can't hear each other. So there's talks that people won't be able to meet in person, truthfully speaking, until there's a virus, until there's a cure for the virus, which is it's really tough, because it just affects the work and how we do it. People have been trying virtual choirs. For those of you who are familiar with Eric Whitaker and his virtual choir, you're gonna say?
Well, okay, so I absolutely love Eric Whitaker, but I just can't fathom singing in a virtual choir. I mean, it's fine, and it's great that we're figuring out ways to do it. And I know I've got friends, instructors, and they're doing Zoom lessons, and it's possible. I'm not being critical of it at all, but you cannot replicate that standing shoulder to shoulder. The choir I was in college, we held hands. Like you can't replicate that sharing of electrons that you do in a group. That's what's so gratifying about singing in a group like that, is that constant fine-tuning and adjustment that you're doing with the person sitting next to you and the soprano who is on the other side of the parabola, listening to their part, trying to get that all tuned in and figured out. And I just hope that it happens sooner than later. I think the day we're recording this, Dr. Fauci said that they're optimistic that a vaccine could be in place, at the first part of 2021. But at the same time, I know, growing up in the medical family that I grew up in, and have, doctors who are uncles and aunts who we've got to be careful about that about how we do all that.
Oh, for sure. And, like there had been, there was a story about a community choir in Seattle. And this happened back, I want to say in March or something like that, right back a couple months ago. And they tried to meet and they tried to social distance, but they just couldn't prevent the spread of this virus. And people ended up dying. People in the choir, they died because they caught COVID, and they just couldn't beat it. And it was tremendously sad. So, like I work with a couple of choirs in the LA area outside of USC as well. I'm the choir director at First Unitarian Church in Koreatown, which is right next to downtown LA where I live. And we have a wide demographic of ages, which is a great thing for community building. But because we have people who are more susceptible to just more susceptible to contracting the virus, the older population, we just can't risk it, so even if there are clearances that say that choirs can meet, both my pianist and I, Travis, he's an amazing collaborator in person. We can't meet with everyone, then we just can't meet right now. So we've been rehearsing online via Zoom to try to put together these virtual choir videos. We're actually presenting 2 of them this upcoming Sunday at a service. But the other choir that I work with, it's called the Los Angeles Zimriah Chorale, and they focus on Jewish choral music because there's a huge population of Jewish people in LA. Because the primary age demographic is 55 and older for that group, they've canceled their season this past spring. So I was out of work in that department, in that area, and for the foreseeable future, they don't think they're going to be able to meet. It's really tough.
So it's just like, how has the adjustment been, growing up in a very small town, Wilton, Iowa, and now you're in, the 3rd largest metropolis in the entire world? Like, it's just, a town that you can ride a moped or golf cart around to a town where, the interstates are 6 lanes wide. And, I've traveled there for work several times, so I'm familiar a little bit with the traffic. But that hadn't been a major adjustment, going to, moving to that part of the country.
Yeah, it was. But, I will say the transition was made easier through my path, because I started out in Wilton, which, about 3,000 people. And then I went to Wartburg, which is in Waverly, Iowa, and that population is about 10 or 12, something along those lines. And then I moved down to Columbia, Missouri, and that was my first city, I guess you could say, that I lived in.
It's like 120,000, 140,000, something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Very much college town vibes. And then I took the big plunge and moved out here to LA to start my doctorate. And it was intimidating at first. And I knew, I'm trying to think, one of my best friends, one of my favorite people on the planet, his name's EJ Harrison. We did our master's degree together. He's also a conductor, musician, singer. He's a professional singer. I knew him, and he was at USC, and kind of introduced me to the community there. I will say that getting acquainted here with the city was a lot easier having the USC community, because it's not like I moved out here just for a job,
Right.
Out an apartment, started this job on my own. I had a community that was looking out for me and taking care of me, faculty and students. And we kind of, especially the first years, we kind of explored the city together.
Right.
It's taken me, I'll be finishing up my 3rd year living here now. And I just continue to expand what I know, and challenges that come with the city, I think, at least from my experience, one of them would be driving, but I don't have a car out here, so I don't have to deal with
Nice.
that. The traffic is real. It is real. But another tough thing, surprisingly, can be meeting people. You'd think in a city so big, it'd be easy to just go up and meet people. But at least in my experience, sometimes the city's too big, and people have their own circles. They have their own friend groups. And from my experience, people kind of just tend to their groups, especially like when I've been out. That's been my experience. I'm thankful to have had the USC community, which is really kind of helps me form a core friend group. But positives to the city, the first thing I have to mention is food. So, dude, I tell you, so one of the coolest things about LA, it's one of the most diverse cities in the United States. There's people from all over the world that move here. And when there's people from all over the world that move here, they bring their culture. And what is a core aspect of culture? Food.
It's music and food.
Music and food, man. You know, it's the shit. Oh, God, I can't say that.
We can edit it out. You're good. You're good.
Okay, cool. But no, dude, there's I frequent Korean food. I frequent taco trucks. I frequent Thai food. I love that. When I was house sitting down in Long Beach, which is about 30 minutes away from LA, I did my research and found that the biggest of anywhere in the United States. So when I was there, I went down to the little Cambodia town area and tried some Cambodian food and tried to expose myself to some aspects of that culture and just learn some new things. So I think that's been one of the coolest things about LA. It's just the diversity here and learning about new people, new cultures, and new experiences.
You know, and talking more about your passion with music and kind of dovetails in a little bit with how food is, you know, the kind of the bridge, like we said, music and food are the culture kind of conduits for in and out of everyone's cultural background. You know, what are some, for someone who may not be as choral music savvy, they've all got Apple Music or they've got, you know, YouTube or whatever. What is a composer or a piece that you would recommend someone go Google tonight to kind of introduce themselves to truly like choral music that you think would is a must listen to? Like what's the soul food, if you will, of choral music that you would tell people to go look up?
Oh man, that's a deep question, dude. But just to I'll give you a couple answers. And the reason that I do that is because one of the coolest things I think about choral music specifically is that the tradition is over 1,000 years old. So there are people, the earliest people that were making choral music were the people that were doing chants. Chants and these monks and these people in these old churches, these medieval churches. So it spans back to the year 900 and year 1000, you know, so there's a lot of cool music out there. But a piece that I would recommend, I'm sure you know this guy, Morton Lordson. Yeah, so he's kind of he's a contemporary, he's like the pop music star, one of the big pop music stars of choral music. This guy, he's also a former USC faculty member.
I was going to say, isn't he a USC guy? Yeah, I remember reading that about him back in the day.
I was in his final class that he taught, his final
Nice.
choir composition class that he taught last year. He's an interesting dude. He's an interesting dude. But yeah, check out his piece Omanium Mysterium.
Yep.
And yeah, it's
conducted that in my choral conducting class in college.
Okay, sweet.
Yes.
Yeah, it's you know, and the reason that I recommend it is because it's a cappella. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it just means without instrumental accompaniment. So it's just purely voices only. And he does such a great job of blending chords and blending sounds that are just so appealing and satisfying and nurturing, I think, to the ear. So that's kind of a great starting place for a long rabbit hole of exploration.
Yeah, it truly is a rabbit hole that I encourage our viewers to go down. Again, our guest is Nate Fratzke, and if you're just joining us, Wilton native who's in the Doctor of Musical Arts program at USC after, you know, spending some time in the Midwest. So is the ultimate goal then to get your own college program or be one of the lead conductors in like a large municipal choir? Or, you know, I mean, I don't know that people realize that these major cities like Denver, Dallas, even Kansas City, you know, St. Louis, Chicago, there are large, you know, community choirs that are, you know, professional level people who are performing in them. So is that what you're thinking, or are you, what's the dream job of Nate Fratzke at the age of whatever, 26 or 25 or whatever you are?
My honest answer is I do not know. And it's crazy to say that, man, but The reason I say that, number one, because of COVID. Quite frankly, the things that I have on my mind right now, I'm trying to pay my rent and get my groceries.
Right. Yeah. No, I get it.
And you know, if just because choirs aren't able to meet right now, it's hard to find work, dude. And the work that you do, it's not the regular kind of work. Like, it's to be generic and quoting, like, it's not necessarily the work I signed up for, you know, doing
Right. Yeah.
so, I have to be honest with myself too, and recognize that, number one, I need to be able to support myself. So I got to do what I need to do in order to do that. But I do also need to say, and I just think it's important that I be honest here. I've gone straight through school from my undergrad to my master's to college, or to doctorate. And this is my 10th straight year of college. And it's a lot. It's a lot of classical music. It's a lot of learning. It's a lot of being a student. And there's a certain experience of being a student that takes its toll on you. So my plan right now is to still continue to be involved in choirs and still continue to conduct, but I just need a little bit of a break, man. I need to kind of step back and take a lighter role. I think I'll continue to work with my church choir, continue to work with maybe the Jewish choir if they're still able to meet, COVID considering. But I think I just need to recharge my batteries a little bit. Looking in the foreseeable future, I do have interest also in working with orchestras, which I think would be really cool. I've had opportunities both during my master's and here at USC to work with orchestras as well. And I've learned from some really, really amazing teachers and had some great experiences. But the options are open right now, man. I can't tell you a dream job because I don't think I'm done exploring yet.
Yeah, that's normal. I'll tell you that as your former coach, that is perhaps one of the most normal things that you could ever experience. I'm 38 years old, and I've had about 5 different careers, it feels like, since we first encountered one another. We'll go into our kind of fun section as we start to wrap up today, which I call, because my last name is Kraushaar, so we call this Inside the Crosshairs instead of in the crosshairs.
All right.
And so a little pun. And all right. So rapid fire here. You have to pick Palestrina or Poulenc. Who you go with?
Oh, Poulenc.
Right answer.
His music's so cool, dude. So sweet.
Absolutely. Do you know how to correctly pronounce Heinrich Schütz?
Schütz.
Yes, that was such a big thing in my director in college. He's like, if you learn one thing from me, you'll learn how to pronounce his last name. So, favorite Mahler symphony?
2, the Resurrection. Yeah, Resurrection Symphony, man. That final movement. It's
that is the best choral movement in the history of symphonic work, in my opinion.
It's just unbelievably epic. Yeah, for those of you who are looking for something to do tonight, go to YouTube and search Mahler Symphony No. 2, 5th final movement, and it's the Leonard Bernstein recording. You have to watch him conduct this, man. It's transcendent, dude.
I think you can sit and watch Lenny Bernstein conduct on mute, and you're entertained, because just watching him communicate. I think that's something we said at the onset, you and I are probably going to nerd out a little bit today, and that's okay. Because I just want people who may not have been exposed to this. I was blessed to have a similar story as you did, with family playing the piano, and my grandmother played the organ at a Methodist church for 74 years. And so I mean, we just grew up, my parents are musicians. And so but I didn't know any different. Thanksgiving meant you just watched an old VHS tape of Porgy and Bess. That's just what you did. And so I just want folks, go out there, use these resources like YouTube and these smartphones we have. There's so much great work out there that's not stuffy. It's not
Right.
you know, I'm not asking you to go watch the Ring Cycle. Don't waste the 12 hours on Wagner. Go look up, go listen to Eric Whitacre's arrangement of "Hurt" by Nine Inch Nails. There's a that whole choral arrangement of that. Who would you say is kind of the leader in the modern movement of American composition? I mean, Eric Whitacre kind of is the most famous guy, but are there some other ones that I may not have heard of? That you would encourage people to take a look at?
Um. Yeah. No. Whitaker. He's the guy right now. And he has been. Heck, he has been for the last, I'd say 15.
Yeah, I mean he's been it since I was in
He's
college,
he's
20 years ago.
Yeah, he's the guy. Lordson's still huge. I'll try to I'll pitch a name of a friend because that's what we do. We help each other out.
Absolutely.
I have a friend of mine. His name is Sonder Choi. Saunderchoi. He moved to LA. He's a former master's degree student in composition from USC. He writes some really, really cool music. I'd recommend checking his music out. So.
Who's the pop music that's in your iPod right now? Who are you listening to right now?
Let's see. I've been listening to quite a bit of Childish Gambino.
Yeah.
As of late, I've been listening to. I like Drake. I listen to quite a bit of Drake. I went some throwback. I did some throwback and went to All Time Low. The kind of punk pop. Yeah, dude. I loved that in high school. And I was just listening to music the other day. I use Spotify, and I'm like, dang, I'm gonna go down this rabbit hole. So I've been binging All Time Low as of late. I'll humor you quick. Give me a hot second. Well,
while you're looking that up, I will share a story that made me realize that I was coaching a fellow music nerd. Is I was sitting in front of you and Logan Lyon on the bus I think we were going to West Burlington for a playoff game, and like you guys were sharing headphones, and all of a sudden I could hear the Broadway musical Wicked coming through your headphones.
Man.
And you guys, I turned around and like kind of made a comment, and you guys looked at me like, "Oh no, our D line coach." The show tunes, and then I started like singing along, and the look on your face was like, "Holy crap, Coach K actually knows these songs!" Like you did, because at that point, none of you guys knew that I had that background. It was one of the more memorable moments of my coaching career, because I always get a kick out of it, because there is this false toxic masculinity sometimes in the coaching profession that you get kids who they're scared to ask you or say, "Hey, I'm going to be." It happened to you. Like you had a conversation. You were like, because we made the playoffs, and you're like, "I'm going to have to miss that Saturday practice because it was all-state auditions." And Lance Peterson, your head coach, and the guy we worked for, he was great about that. And Coach Thompson, also at Wilton, was a musician and had auditioned for all-state as well when you were in high school. So it's a very welcoming thing. But it was always funny to watch kids who were like nervous, and it's sad that there are kids that are nervous about having to ask their football coaches if they can miss. They have to miss practice because they had this other monumental part of their high school career, all-state auditions on a Saturday. And it was just that's one of those moments I'll never forget, was you guys like shocked that this 300-pound coach was singing Popular from Wicked, or because you had no idea. It's also not your typical get pumped up music on the bus ride to a football game either, but whatever you got to do to keep it.
No AC/DC.
No. Yeah. Like my son is 9, and we're putting together a playlist for the state swim meet, and I'm like going through like some of my old playlists from working out and stuff, and I'm like, none of these songs are appropriate for a 9-year-old. Like they're just we can't have Bulls on Parade here for a 9-year-old getting ready for a swim. So we found a bunch of Kids Bop versions of like Macklemore and stuff like that. So yeah. So what were you looking up? What were you trying to find?
Yeah, I found I just looked through like my recently played. So I've got All Time Low. It would have been Tupac's birthday. last week, so I was listening to some Tupac. I've been
So your throwback is the stuff that was popular when I was in high school. That's awesome. This is great.
I guess you could say that. Yeah, but here's something that wasn't when you were popular when you were in high school, and this is or new when you were in high school. I've been listening to Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On" album.
Yeah.
And especially, I think it's so especially relevant right now with the civil rights uprising that's taking place. Because that whole album, it's a concept album that talks about it incorporates the struggles of the black experience in America, but also it throws into play things like climate change.
Yep.
There's a lot of deep lyrics in that album, and it's the music is so cool.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to that quite a bit lately, and I'm actually working on a project, hopefully for 2021, that incorporates choirs and musicians, and we're going to try to get some modern arrangements, choral arrangements with orchestra of songs from that album.
Well, I know we're running out of time, but it's one of those things where I think music, it's always the first thing that people want to trim when they're looking at budget cuts, whether it's in curriculum or schools or, even in, community engagement. It's they're looking to cut funding for, if they do support, say a community gives some grant money, to a nonprofit for music. It's one of the first things that they look to maybe trim the fat. But, in times of crisis, in times of strife, it's honestly the first thing that we all go to. You put your headphones on and you pop on a Cage the Elephant song, or you go to Mahler 2, and like that. When I'm really down, I honestly turn on, the fifth movement of the Resurrection Symphony, or I go to, even I'm a big Broadway guy, so I'll pop on some former USC professor Jason Robert Brown. Look,
dude, this music's amazing. Yep.
Yeah, you just, especially you as a piano player, you just have to listen to that and just be like, holy crap, this is fun. And it's what we all rely on, and yet it's one of the first things we are critical of when we have to fund it. And I'm thankful for people like yourself who are, continuing the fight and continuing the pursuit of mastering it, so that you can teach the next wave, or deal with idiot adults like me who try to hop into a choir and I think that they can still hit that high C as much as possible. But
listen, man, you give those high C's all you want.
I'm so glad I never have to sing a mezzanine again in my life for those 9 high C's at the end. But it's a passion, and I'm glad that there are people like you who are doing. I learned early on that I didn't have the same fight to keep doing it every single day, and I'm glad I can do it as a hobby. I know your mom is involved with the Wilton Music Guild, and she's been involved with the highlighter shows and some of the things in Wilton. And so there's definitely still the Fratzke presence here in our area, and we hope that maybe you find your way back to the Midwest. And if you ever want to do something when you're back, just hit me up and we'll put something together.
Sure, sounds great, man. I really
appreciate. Last thing I'll leave you with is, do you know why Bach never paid for dinner?
No.
Because he was always Baroque.
Oh, dang it.
Dad jokes. I got dad jokes.
That was a very good dad joke.
All right, Nate Fratzke, Wilton's own, grad student at the University of Southern California, the world's largest United Methodist college, by the way. As a fellow alum of a United Methodist college, that's a random fact they teach you when you go to a Methodist college. So USC, we're happy to have you still representing the Midwest. And furthest guest for TBD with Coach Kraushaar in Los Angeles. But believe it or not, I've got another Los Angeles-based guest coming up in a few weeks. So we're hitting the West Coast hard with natives from our area. So Nate, thanks so much, and stay safe. I know it's a little bit crazier out there, a little higher population density, but we're all doing our best to protect ourselves. And good luck with everything. And if you need anything, just you know where to find me.
Will do, Coach. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, thanks. Nate Fratzke, Again, everyone, check us out. This is TBD with Coach Kraushaar and Discover Muscatine. You can go back and look at old episodes. We've had some really good interviews with the washed up walk-ons with Iowa football. DJ Hawkins, football coach from Muscatine. Coming up in a few, we've also interviewed Ryan Hetzler, the athletic director at Wilton High School. So we've got a lot of other people coming up this summer as we wait for hopeful seasons to come up. And Chamberlain Heating and Air Conditioning, we couldn't do this without them as our sponsor. Please go check them out for all your HVAC needs as well as your outdoor living. So this has been TBD with Coach Kraushaar on Discover Muscatine.